Welcome everybody to Lions, Lies, and Billy Goats. This is episode 33. I'm Jeff. That's Paul. This is our guest Jan for the day. Again, we got nothing in particular to talk about today. Just going to shoot the shit over some current events, possibly some libertarian stuff. And since Jan is a lawyer, I got two lawyer questions for you. How do you feel, or do you, in your line of work, how do you deal with qualified immunity for the cops?
Interesting, really good question. In terms of dealing with it, there's really nothing much you can do, right? Um, they can pretty much do whatever they want, right? There's a couple recourses. They're both, you can sue them civilly, either in federal court or in state court for civil rights violations. One is a false arrest, which if your charges get dismissed, now you're not really suing the cop, you're suing NYPD and the city or the state and getting money from them, not really the cop himself.
Right.
It really has to be very egregious to the point where the cop went outside of his scope, and even that I don't remember ever seeing somebody get in trouble past that. I think the last time probably was the Abner Louima case.
Oh yeah. I remember that. That was a while ago. I remember that was
The plunger case, yeah.
that was the plunger. Okay, and then who was the guy who took the wallet out of his back pocket and they shot him up?
Oh,
I
that
was thinking it
wasn't
was
in New York.
Amadou Diallo,
It was in New York.
like back in the 90s.
Was that in Queens? That guy leaving the strip club?
Something
Right.
like that. He was not native to America. He was heavily didn't really speak the language at all, and he saw unmarked plainclothes officers ran up on him, and he went to pull out his ID, and it was a big deal because they shot him a whole bunch of times.
Yeah. So if I remember correctly, it was the Queens case.
Diallo, right? Amadou Diallo or whatever his name was.
I want to say no, but let me see.
I thought it was a sandwich.
Bruce Springsteen wrote a song, like 41 Shots. I think that's what it was called, where they shot him 41 times.
Let me pull it up.
Let me see.
So I guess the question about qualified immunities, I know the libertarian stance on it is to get rid of it and maybe give cops insurance.
Sean Bell was the name.
Okay.
Yeah, he was leaving his bachelor party at a Queens strip club and was killed by the police. But 41 shots.
I think we're talking about different cases. I thought you guys were talking about this one. I think.
Well, that's what we started at.
Yes. Yeah. Amadou Diallo was the man with the plunger.
Yeah. They beat him up in the bathroom.
No. They shot at him.
Oh yeah. Amadou Diallo was that guy.
They shot at him 41 times and they hit him 19 times. And I think he was pulling like a sandwich or something out of his hand, or they thought it was a gun. It was like wrapped in aluminum foil or something.
Maybe. You know what? I always confuse this case with the plunger case.
Yeah. Oh no! Wait.
Abner Louima.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Jeffrey. You are correct. It says that because he pulled out his wallet.
And the thing I remember about it is I remember reading an article. What's the date on that, Paul?
99, February 4th.
Yeah, I remember reading an article that had to deal with. They were complaining about the way the cops' guns, like the 9mm with the 14-round clip or whatever mag, doesn't. You can shoot a guy 5 times and he won't fall down. Mm-hmm. Compared to like the 1980s when they all carried those snub-nose 38 revolvers and like one shot, the impact will knock you over. I just remember that debate. So do you think that that something like insurance would work if it replaced qualified immunity? And
100%. I think, again, it put the burden on the individual police officers to make sure that any actions they take themselves would not result in a lawsuit in their insurance carrier having to pay out money and drop it again. It's kind of pretty much anything that we do as individuals, right? I don't drive my car at 100 miles per hour, not only because I don't want to die, but if God forbid if I hit somebody, right, my insurance is going to go through the roof and all that. So I mean, I think there's a
Right.
lot of different things we consider and think about it through our daily lives that maybe it's subconsciously, but we think about how much money we would have to pay out if we fucked up.
Jan,
Yeah.
I know you
Go ahead,
mentioned
Paul.
that that they could be sued civilly, but not the specific individual, but the department as a
Correct. So
whole. But
yes.
if you have qualified immunity though, you cannot be sued criminally, right? You
So well, qualified immunity it doesn't really apply criminally, right? So if the cops, if anybody commits a crime while they are on duty, cops, judges, prosecutors, because all three of them have qualified immunity. I mean, technically, any government employee has qualified immunity for doing their job. But if they commit a crime, they could always be arrested and sued, right? I'm sorry, they could always be arrested and prosecuted if they qualified immunity deals with them being sued civilly. So basically, it's you can't go after them civilly for their actions. So again, you sue the state, the department, but you can't sue them individually.
For wrongful death or violation of Fourth Amendment or whatever
Mhm.
individual right.
do you guys
Correct.
know when qualified immunity first came about, or has it always been a thing? Or
I couldn't tell you. It's a good question though.
Let's look that up. When did qualified immunity start? In 1967, the United States Supreme Court introduced qualified immunity in Pearson v. Wright to protect the police officers from financial liability after they arrested 15 clergy members for breaching the peace after they attempted to use a segregated waiting room at a bus station. So there you
uh,
Oh,
go.
okay.
so yeah, so it
And
came about during the civil rights movement,
Correct.
1967.
Yeah, to protect the cops. And essentially it established a good faith defense that basically, hey, I was doing my job, and within the course of action, I essentially made a mistake that I thought I was, essentially
yeah,
right.
in the process of my duties, I
Mhm.
what could have happened.
Correct.
Now, what about not necessarily qualified immunity, but I was going down the rabbit hole of social contract theory the other day, and that's silliness. And um, one of the things that comes up is, if it's a contract, then two people or two things are, there's an equal
Mhm.
responsibility for each side. And then I forget the name of the case, but it was somebody versus DC in 1981 that says that cops aren't actually obligated to help you.
So it was a Supreme Court case. I actually can't remember the name of the case, but yes, the police have no duty to protect you, right?
Something about
It
the
was
two women had called the cops
so
and the cops
yes, it
showed
was
up and left and came back, and the women got attacked and all types of bad things happened to the women.
if now I may be kind of misremembering, but if I remember correctly, it was a domestic violence case. The cops showed up. They just kind of took a report, didn't really do anything, right, and then left. And then I guess the woman's husband, boyfriend, whoever he was, ended up killing her
Okay.
or attacking her pretty bad. And she tried to sue the police, and pretty much, the Supreme Court said they have no duty to protect you. It was actually a big thing a couple years ago. I don't remember if you guys remember, there was a man in New York City on the subway trying to attack people with a drill, with a power drill, and I think he had stabbed two people, if I'm not mistaken, and the cops were waiting for him to kind of finish stabbing people before they came in and apprehended him.
Oh wow. Okay.
And the whole big story about that was that the cops have no duty to protect you. So to me, kind of going back to the libertarian principles, right? It's just entirely crazy how the state constantly takes away your ability to protect you and tells you to rely on their police force, and yet the police force, they have, and the state has told you numerous times that the police force has no duty to protect you.
Which that alone destroys social contract theory.
Correct.
Man, this is some bullshit.
What about the Daniel Perry case?
The subway
Subway guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So kind of very interesting. That case was very interesting. I did not have the ability to pay attention as much as I could have. But to me, again, now one is obviously he was defending somebody else, or at least the argument was that this the Michael Jackson impersonator was being irate toward a group of to the passengers, and that he was kind of yelling, with kids there, and so he tried to subdue the impersonator. Um, the question really became there was, did he use the necessary force, or did he go above that, right? And if I remember correctly, I think during the trial, one of the EMTs, again going back to the no duty to help, one of the EMTs testified that when they actually arrived on the scene, the deceased was actually not dead yet, right?
Correct.
That he was still alive, and that had they given him mouth to mouth resuscitation, they probably would have been able to save him. But they declined to do that because they did not have the equipment to do it safely. And because they knew him as a homeless, junkie, they didn't want to get any diseases from him.
Right.
So just think about that again. You have a man that was tried for murder, right, when it should have been the state and the EMTs in that position, because they are the ones that failed to provide aid.
Did you guys see the video of it?
Not since like
I mean,
it
it's
first came out.
yeah,
You
it's
only
been
got
a
to see it
minute
once
for me, but you
or
can
twice.
actually clearly hear the EMT saying, "No, he's breathing," or "He's alive," whatever the
Yeah.
statement was. But he says it a couple times.
You got a pulse or no?
I feel a pulse.
You feel the pulse? You breathing, right?
Try it on the wrist. Try it on the wrist. This one?
You got a pulse. You got a pulse. You breathing?
I feel like
Nah, I feel the pulse.
Well, and he testified to that as well, during the trial.
So speaking of the libertarian principles, how did you come across libertarianism?
Oh man, so pretty much I was always conservative and Republican conservative. I can't say I was huge into politics throughout college and high school and college, but definitely towards the end of college, I became more interested in politics. I was, obviously a George Bush guy because I was a Republican,
Yeah, me too.
and I knew since I was a kid, I always wanted to be an attorney, right? So while in law school, I really loved criminal law, right? I never wanted to be a defense attorney, always wanted to be a prosecutor. So I really focused on that. And again, because I was pretty much conservative, that's the way I wanted to go. And then a couple different things happened that kind of led me to finding libertarianism as I became an attorney. And I saw that the cops really are not the protectors of the Constitution, right? In law school, again, because I grew up pretty kind of a privileged white kid, really didn't have too much contact with the cops, and when I did, it was because we were out drinking in the park, or we were doing something stupid. So it was like, they came, they took the beers away and sent you home, right? It really wasn't committing crime. It wasn't really, targeted by cops. So I didn't have any animosity against them other than some bullshit driving tickets I received as a kid. So I always thought they did their job and they protected the Constitution, right? That they took the Fourth Amendment search and seizures really seriously, right? And did not violate that. Um, I quickly learned once I became a criminal defense attorney that that was not the case, right? And they couldn't give two shits about the Constitution. I actually one time had an argument with one of my really good friends who was a cop, and he kind of called the Constitution a doctrine, that it gives all these criminals rights, and communist Russia was using it. I'm like, I don't think you know what the fuck you're talking about. But okay. Um, so yeah, I quickly realized that really the cops were not there to protect you, and quickly started realizing that all these conservatives that love the cops and love, the police force, and love the criminal justice system really again don't know what the hell they're talking about, right? They don't know that the system is actually working against them, right? And one of the biggest things I hear all the time is, well, I didn't know it was that easy to just, all I have to do is go into the police station and file a complaint, and then that person's getting arrested. Don't the cops do any type of investigation? Don't they do any detective work? No, they don't, right? And it's very easy for you to get arrested. So it, I I love seeing conservatives kind of realize that the system is not exactly what they believed, and kind of start questioning. So really seeing that started having me question the Republican Party, the Conservative Party, and really whether I belonged in that party or not. Obviously, the Democrats don't give two shits about the Constitution either, and I was kind of felt myself to be politically homeless, right? Um, Also, at the same time, I wasn't a huge ONA fan, but I was an ONA fan, and then all of a sudden, they kind of, well, Anthony, did Anthony Cumia things and got in trouble, and they were no longer on the air. That led me to um, listening to some Joe Rogan, also Bobby Kelly's You Know What Dude podcast, and then finding Louis J. Gomez on there and listening to Legion of Skanks, and then from
Okay.
Legion of Skanks finding Dave Smith, and really listening to Part of the Problem, and from there, reading Democracy, the God That Failed, The Enemy of the State. I'm sorry, Anatomy of the State, and a whole bunch of other
Oh, I
books
love
as well.
Anatomy of the State. I keep trying to
Yeah.
push it on Paul, man. It's a short read. I mean,
It's
it's
a,
like
it's a
a long article, I guess. It's
yeah,
like 60 pages in a Kindle.
correct. Yeah, it's a fantastic book. Honestly, I loved Democracy, the God That Failed.
I think I have that
Um,
right here.
I keep looking at my bookshelf to see if it's here or downstairs. I think it's downstairs, but yeah. So that's pretty much how I kind of became a libertarian. Once listening to Dave Smith, it's funny when what was that 2012? I really liked Ron Paul, but I remember just being like, I don't know if people are going to vote for him and blah blah blah. So I ended up voting for Romney, but I was really kind of a fan of Ron Paul before I knew what libertarian was or anything like that. So,
Yeah, I'm the same way. A buddy of mine who was actually one of our first guests on here. He was a hardcore libertarian, and he kept telling me all libertarian stuff, and I was still kind of a Republican. And I'm like, nah, man, like, no, that can't be true. It's too big of a conspiracy for that to happen. This
mhm.
can't. I was just stuck in that two-party trap. And like, Republicans are right, Democrats are wrong. And then in school, that I had to read basic economics by Soul,
Okay.
and I got into that, and then that brought me to to Hayek, and that brought me to von Mises, and brought me to Rothbard,
Mhm.
and then I found Spike Cohen,
Okay.
and then I found Tom Woods, and I found Dave Smith, and I just started. I'm like, these guys, with that, I like what they're saying. Like, that's exactly how I feel. And then
Mhm.
next thing you know, I'm just, I'm not full and cap, but I'm getting there.
Oh, I am full ANCAP. I am. Damn. It's a good, well, a buddy of mine had, when I was telling him that I was kind of no longer a Republican and I was going to leave the party and join the Libertarian Party. He was like, "What's the difference between a libertarian and an anarchist?" I go, "What?" He goes, "7 months." Right.
Yeah,
And I told him it was a lot shorter than 7 months for me, but yeah.
Guys,
yeah,
I don't want to cut you off, but I
go
wanted
ahead.
to make two things real quick. So,
Mhm.
first of all, we're obviously talking about cops and compromising or negative situations. I just want to be fair, or at least from my perspective. I think it's important to look at all the cases separately. Because I know some cops and they're good people. And I think sometimes when you're thrown into like a situation and you have to make a split-second decision, sometimes we make mistakes.
No,
Um,
mistakes happen.
so yeah, I don't know if you. I don't think you guys are referring to all police officers. Maybe
No,
the laws that bind them, but not like their specific.
so I'll preface this with that I have a lot of friends that are cops, right? A lot of friends. Like I said, one of my best friends is a cop, and essentially, I because I hang out with him a lot. I met a lot of his cop buddies, and I became friends with them. And so I have a lot of friends that are cops. I am saying every single cop is a bad cop, right?
Oh Jesus!
Um,
All right.
and they may be good guys, right? They are great guys, right? Again, when they don't have the badge on, they are fantastic human beings, right? Unfortunately, because of the job that they do, they are constantly violating your rights, right? And not just because they are following laws and following orders, right? Don't forget the defense of I was just following orders went out the window in 1965, right? You can no longer just say, "Hey, listen, I was following orders," right? So anytime the police stop you for, and arrest you for possession of a handgun, they are violating your not natural God-given rights, right? Anytime they do that, anytime they stop you for possession of marijuana, they are violating your rights. All right.
Jan, but
But
isn't that more of like an issue with the way that we like the laws and everything surrounding the cops rather than the cops themselves? Like, what if we don't give them qualifying immunity? What if they don't have the ability to do this without being reprimanded or punished for it?
they are. I think I'm trying to remember who said this. It may have been Mike Kamalas, but they are choosing their pension over your freedom and your rights, right? And
What if we take away their
that
pension?
makes them bad cops, right? Again, they may be great people, right? Again, I know a lot of cops that are fantastic people. Will take the back of the shirts off their back to help you, right? But at the end of their day, when they stop you and arrest you for possession of a weapon, right? Whether you're a criminal or not, really doesn't matter, right? They are violating your rights, right? They're violating your constitutional rights. Remember, how many cops quit during COVID? Very few, right? So, if we have, I know they like to call Trump Hitler, right? But if he really was Hitler and he was giving orders to round up people and put them in camps, right? And those were legal laws, right? How many cops would quit because they did not want to follow that? Or how many would stay on the job and say, I was just following orders?
So, Paul, I think what you're saying, the job itself makes them be
Mhm.
in violation of your rights just by doing the job. Because again, in anatomy of the state is the monopoly on violence. They
Mhm.
control, like, if I came up to you and extorted your business for money, that would be extortion. But when the government does it, it's called taxation.
Yeah.
You
But
know what
I
I mean?
guess
So
I understand what Jan's saying. I guess what I'm looking for is like, what's the solution? Do we just not have police? Or do we have police and just say that they're, all terrible at their job? Or is there some kind of solution that we can come to where, cops have some authority, but not the authority to violate your constitutional rights? Like you
Well,
said with the gun thing.
so I mean, right, and this is obviously a much longer question and larger question to answer, but um, right, let's say first of all, if cops actually did their job, what their job entails, right? You, if I told you the amount of times I've had a cop or detective tell me that it's not their job to investigate whether a crime happened, if I had a nickel for any time that happened, I'd have a shit ton of money, right? I'm telling you, I'm being very
I
serious.
believe you. I believe you.
Cops have told me flat out, not my job, right? It's not my job to investigate. I'm like, no, that's literally your fucking job, right? That's your only job is to investigate whether a crime happened, right?
Right.
So it's um, how about we start with that, right? How about when your TV gets stolen and you call the cops, right? They don't just show up if they show up to take a report, and then that's the last time you ever hear from them, right? Or maybe when you go into the precinct to pick up the report, so you can send it to your insurance company and they can send you back the money, right?
Hmm.
That may be the last time you hear from them. But how about they investigate and find out who stole it, right? Um, how about we start with that and them actually doing their job instead of again going out and arresting drug users, right, or even drug dealers, right? You want to talk about a social contract or a contract between two individuals, right? If I'm a grown adult and I'm buying drugs, whether it's heroin, fentanyl, crack, cocaine, you name it, right? If I'm a grown individual and I'm buying that from you, that is a contract between two individuals, right?
Yeah, I'm
So
totally
why?
with
So
you on
why?
that.
Yeah.
yeah,
So why should you or I be arrested for it?
Oh, I'm totally with you on that. The whole war on drugs
Mhm.
I find to be comical, on a good day. But yeah,
Yeah.
no, I'm with you. Who am I to tell somebody else what they can and can't put in their body? Who am I to regulate that for them? That's your body. You want to? I would advise against it, but I'm not going to stop you. I have mixed feelings about like drug dealers, and I'm not talking about the gangbangers on the street corner. I'm talking about the Tony Montanas of the
the
world that are,
cartels.
making millions off of it and killing people. So I don't know. I kind of have mixed feelings about all of that.
Well,
Um,
speaking of,
If I'm sorry, if drugs were not illegal, there would be no Tony Montanas.
true. That's
which
true.
actually gets us into something I was going to think about bringing up, is Trump's decision to basically
Horrible.
start steps into fighting the cartels. He's already got the drones going up and down. But we've had them going up and down, but now they're
So he's going to
more
fight the
intense. They're
Mexican
going
government,
well with the help of the Mexican government. But now
but they
instead of
work for the Mexican government.
well, some of them. But what I'm saying is what Trump is doing is now, as opposed to the normal cartel surveillance that we do between the DEA and the FBI and the CIA, whoever, they've now completely increased the amount of drones. They're taking way more um, depth of the intelligence gathering to start preparing to move against the cartels
Right.
in with
Correct.
force. And I can't help to think that like if you want to cut the cartels off from their finances, why don't you just legalize fucking drugs?
Yeah, or rather, I should say that the Mexican government works for the cartels.
It's
Um,
both. It's both. They
yeah,
have their
it's
they
they
have
have
their
they're in bed together. They
yeah,
have a
there's 6 different
relationship.
cartels who kick the shit out of each other all the time, but they come to work together when business is involved. I mean, as much as it's dirty game, it's always comes down to business.
Sure, it's all about that
And
almighty dollar.
I got this book back here somewhere called Narconomics, and it was a great read. It's from like 10 years ago.
I just want to
But
ask you guys a different question too. I don't want to change the
Mhm.
topic, but I do want to
oh,
clarify something for the audience. Like we've been talking about libertarianism, and while I'm familiar with it, and you guys clearly are, could you guys maybe just throw out a couple bullet points, like what makes you a libertarian as opposed to a Republican or a Democrat, or what are some things that you guys value?
Self ownership, private property rights, and obviously the non-aggression principle. I would say the really the
Yeah,
three main points there, and the kind of intertwine and intermingle. Um,
yeah, that's I agree. The Dave Smith answer: it's individual rights,
mhm.
especially property rights, and the non-aggression principle.
And
It's
when you guys say the non-aggression principle, I'm assuming you mean foreign policy.
Well, no,
moral. Don't impose your will on another individual, another state, another group of people,
So it's all
and
encompassing.
it's cooperation versus coercion. You know
yeah.
what I
Gotcha.
mean?
Don't aggress. I can't aggress on you unless you're aggressing on me, right? And whether
Self-defense.
that's through physical violence or even non-physical violence, right? If we're neighbors, I can't just take my fence and move it 10 feet onto your property, right? Because that would be me aggressing, showing aggression towards you and taking your land, right? So, that's the non-aggression principle, is that essentially you can't use aggression unless somebody's using it against you or threatening to use it against you.
And when it comes to foreign policy, it's I hate the word they use the word isolationist to try to downgrade what the position actually is. It's
Mhm.
basically don't fuck with me because if you do, I'm gonna fuck with you.
Right.
Correct.
So there's no reason that America needs to have 80 fucking bases around the world because if someone actually tries to threaten the homeland, we will all stand up and say we want to go to war because they're coming at us.
Let me see your war face. Sir, you got a war face? Ah! That's a war face. Now let me see your war face. Ah! Bullshit. You didn't convince me. Let me see your real war face. Ah! You don't scare me. Work on it.
All these American foreign policy, which we'll get into, I'm sure, since the end of World War II has been, or even since the end of the Cold War more recently, has been to piss in everybody else's pool and have them do what we want,
Mhm.
either through military force or through a backdoor coup to basically expand our empire
Yeah.
or our
So,
state's empire, not my empire.
great book. I don't know if you guys have ever read it, called Overthrown, right? And it talks about all the places where the US government has overthrown leaders either through um, actual war or economic threats or coups. I mean, it's a fantastic book, and the amount of places it lists on the map, it kind of reads like that. What's that? Oh my God, the Animaniacs cartoon.
Uh-huh.
It's time for Animaniacs, and we're zany to the max. So just sit back and relax, you'll laugh with the laughs. We're Animaniacs.
Yeah. So it's really a great book, um, and really kind of like makes you go, "Oh shit!" That's why every southern South American country is fucked up, is because we overthrew the leaders, took their
Hmm.
land, installed leaders that were friendly to us, and gave us fantastic deals on banana trees or whatever it is,
Yeah.
you name it, and basically we just abused them. We took all their money, right? Did Took their governor, the government that actually cared for them and wanted to protect them, right? We kicked those guys out, installed puppets, took all their money, and now they live in third world countries where the cartel, is kind of ruling the land, and they have no other place to go but here,
Yeah.
right?
I can't think of
Paul,
a single example where we've gone into a country and left it better off than it was before. If you
Paul,
guys have one, let me know.
look up the book War is a Racket because it gets into what we're talking about. And I know I mentioned it on another episode, but this dude is a lieutenant colonel in the Marines, and he talks about all the places that he went to because he thought he was, doing America's bidding. And he's like, I'm serving the interests of he specifically uses the banana example because we
Mhm.
went into whatever country that was to
I think it
ensure
was Honduras, if I no,
bananas.
Where did bananas come from?
Ecuador or something like that.
Maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, but it has to do with how he figured out that he wasn't doing the people's work. He was doing the bidding of corporations and the money masters.
Yeah.
I forget his name. Right, Smedley Butler. That's it.
It says
And
it
this is
right
old.
here. I can't read the whole thing, so I'm gonna. It says I helped in the blank of half. It's the R word. I helped in the R word of half a dozen Central American republics for the benefits of Wall Street.
Yeah, and this is back. And this is guy. When was this printed?
1935 was published.
Exactly. And this we have another 100 years of just increased versions of that.
Yeah, of them doing the same thing over and over again. Our lovely government,
Like,
Yeah.
I was
along
listening to
with its
Scott,
intelligence agencies.
I was just listening to Scott Horton before, because I have provoked. I just haven't gotten into it yet. But he mentions that in the last 15 years alone, we've tried to have run a coup in Belarus 3 separate times. Can you imagine the Russians or the Chinese trying to throw a coup in Mexico
Or Canada, we'd be flipping
or
out.
Canada?
Yeah.
Like, we'd be fucking pissed.
Yeah.
And we'd be over there kicking the shit at everybody for trying to fuck in our world. But when we do it, we're spreading democracy around the world.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I was actually just having a conversation with this lady at my work. She talks to me a lot. She's I don't want to say she's MAGA, but she likes Trump. So she always asks me stuff because she knows I pay attention. And she brought up the Russian-Ukraine thing, and the first thing I had to explain to her was NATO expansion. And why that would be an issue for Russia. And that's exactly what I did. I just flipped it. I said, okay, so Russia's doing the same thing, but, it's in Central America. And now they're up to the Mexican border, and they have military bases on that side, and, medical research facilities and all that. How are you feeling? So you
Yeah.
can, I think it's pretty easy to understand the perspective if you just flip it.
I like to use the John Mersheimer, one of his books, because he's a political realist, and he's like, other states act rationally to them. So just because we want to paint Putin as this crazy monster, which he might be, he does all types of fucked up shit to his people. That's not the point.
Yeah.
But if you were Russia and your enemy, who you've tried to make peace with a few times, it keeps expanding onto your border, violating missile treaties by putting what those missiles they put into Poland, and they said it's for Iran, but it's like, but it can be equipped with this warhead, which technically violates whatever treaty they had made.
Are you talking about napalm?
No. They could take a cruise missile that's designed to shoot down Iranian missiles, and they can change the warhead.
Oh,
And
okay.
now they violated the Intermediate Ballistic Missile Treaty, because now you have a warhead that you can put on a missile that goes with a certain range. And the Americans are like, no, that's not what it's for. It's because of Iran.
Yeah.
Which is one of the reasons that that Putin just increased his missile capacity, because he's like, all right, I can't compete. The best way for me to compete in this nuclear war is just keep making more bombs.
Yeah.
Because there's no way, because he's not putting missiles in Canada. He's not putting, Cuba's out of the question. You know what I mean? So how do you respond to American aggression?
Yeah. And these are just some of the issues that we're talking about with the whole Russia-Ukraine thing. There's obviously more. I just started with NATO with my explanation, but yeah, there's the coup in 2014. Speaking of coups, Zelensky wasn't elected. For those of you who don't know, he was selected. They actually had an elected president, which the United States government and its allies and the CIA overthrew.
Overthrew in 2014.
Look it up.
Yeah. or 2012, 2012,
2014, I think.
2014.
It could be
Yeah, I think
2012 though.
2014.
When was it, Jan?
I think it was 2014.
Regardless,
Yeah.
yeah, that happened. So I think
Hmm.
that's something that the mainstream media just skipped right over. They don't give you any of that.
Well, they
I
don't
saw
want to give you that, because if they do give you that, then all of a sudden you're more informed as to why Putin is doing what he's doing versus Putin's bad. He helped Orange Man win. He's bad. He's a
Yeah.
psychopath. He's bad.
Is it
So
just me? But if Trump didn't exist, I feel like the mainstream media would have collapsed already, because that's really all they talk about now. Elon too, but if you take Elon and Trump out of the news, what's the
I,
discussion?
I think their collapse is coming because of Trump, right?
yeah,
Again, being a libertarian, I was not a huge fan of Trump his first go around. I didn't vote for him the first time. I voted for Gary Johnson. I think
same.
I did vote for him in 2020 just because I thought what's her name was such a horrible candidate. Um,
JoJo.
yeah, JoJo. Um, Not that I thought Gary Johnson was much better, but at that point I was still, pretty much. And I thought that was, if the Libertarians were ever going to go on a big win or at least pull off some kind of upset, I thought that was going to be probably the time to do it. Um, but obviously, Gary Johnson was Gary Johnson and couldn't answer simple questions, or even when he did make a mistake, couldn't fix it. Um, yeah. So why did I bring that up? I'm sorry, I just had a brain fart.
It's all good.
Oh yeah. So I was not a fan of his, but I think my favorite part of what his first term did was essentially wake people up to, as again, I'm a big fan of Malice, and I know he kind of stole it from either Cernovich or what's his name, but the Cathedral, right? Um, so basically, the Cathedral is the the colleges, the education system, the
Hmm.
media, and kind of Hollywood, and that's what props up, the Democratic Party essentially, right?
Mhm.
So
Yeah, and the backdoor funneling to
yeah,
all the NGOs that's coming
mhm,
out.
yeah. I mean that is crazy in itself, but even just to get the pipeline of new members. I mean, it really does start at the schools, right? You're not taught, you're indoctrinated, and then you go to college, and they really pipe your brain or fill your brain with all these fucking bullshit ideas. That communism is the way to go, and America's bad, and white people are bad,
Mhm.
and Hollywood, kind of reinforces those with a lot of the movies or TV shows that go forward, and
It goes back to Marxism, that goes into the progressivism,
mhm,
Marxism and critical theory,
mhm.
and DEI, and the breakdown of the family and the emasculation of men. It's all about population control at the end of the day.
Right.
I mean, like we said it was 100 times on the show that the American education system is based on the Prussian military system
Mhm.
Yeah,
because
which
they
was like a
used,
brainwashing experiment, a
yeah,
programming experiment, if you will.
because they had trouble sending 18-year-olds into battle. They were like, whoa, whoa,
Mhm.
whoa, whoa, wait a second, what are
Mhm.
you doing? They're like, all right, they question authority too much, so let's start them young, put them in rows, raise their hand to ask a question. The teacher in front is the absolute authority, and
And the
then we
flag,
were here because we wanted better workers.
mhm, and the flag in front of the classroom is the ultimate. You pledge your allegiance to that flag every single day for 18 years, and then when they all of a sudden come knocking and say, "Hey, come on," right? You pledge your allegiance now. You got to show it by fighting for us,
Mm.
and so here's a rifle. Have fun in the storming the beaches of Normandy, or going in the caves of in Afghanistan. You're doing this for your country, for that flag that you pledge allegiance to.
Bye bye, boys.
Have fun storming the castle.
Think it'll work?
It would take a miracle.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Exactly, and for some extra motivation,
Mhm.
we'll we'll blow up the main for you and give
Mhm.
you a rallying call, or we'll
Yep.
just happen to not pay attention when they bomb Pearl Harbor.
Mhm.
You know, even though you didn't force the Japanese into coming across, and it's not like we didn't have the codes broken and didn't know what they were saying on the radio.
Yeah.
And there's all this stuff's in the archives at George Washington University, and you can bring it up and you can show it, but I don't. It just doesn't get through to some people.
Well,
Like
I
even
think when you're programmed, right? Like, go
sorry,
ahead.
Paul. Go ahead. No, go.
I was to say when you're programmed, like you don't know you're programmed. Like we were all programmed at some point. Maybe we still are to some extent, but you didn't know. You know, whatever it is that woke you up and got you to start maybe questioning the narrative that we've all been handed since we were, in diapers, essentially,
Mhm.
because they start really early. I mean,
Yeah.
when are you in kindergarten, first grade, 5, 6, 7 years old? So you're
Paul, go to the email and open up the thing I just sent you. This is a good thing for the propaganda we're just talking about.
about Russia.
Yeah, it's about the media and how they flipped on Ukraine.
You're talking about the 30 nonviolent things Russia could
No,
have
no,
done.
no. I literally just sent
Oh,
you a
you
new
sent me
email.
something else. All right.
It's a meme, but it has the title of the Guardian from a couple of years ago compared
Oh,
to
I saw this. This is good.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw this.
So the old the here you go.
Oh, that's hysterical.
Right? It's
Yeah.
just that,
Mhm.
and speaking of the Nazi thing that they were talking about before, like they're calling Trump a Nazi, and Canada brought in that dude, gave him
Mhm.
a whole bunch of standing ovations, and cried. And the guy's like the legit Nazi of all Nazis coming from
Yeah.
Ukraine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, again, I think obviously we're aware of this when the mainstream legacy media, whatever, when they do something, it has to fit their narrative, and you can clearly see that by looking at the left column. Here's the before the
Yeah.
Ukraine crisis, and Reuters is saying Ukraine's got a neo-Nazi problem, but then after the Ukraine crisis, oh, for foreign fighters, Ukraine offers purpose, camaraderie, and a cause. So they basically just pull a complete 180.
Yep.
And
And so to go back to your thing earlier about the collapse of the media again, I don't think the collapse would be happening had it not been for Trump's kind of first term, and people more and more starting to realize how the media is full of shit.
The
Right?
Elon buying Twitter, as much as
Oh,
people don't
huge.
like Elon,
that
it's
was huge.
huge. 'Cause
Yeah.
he let
Mhm.
out Twitter files that showed for a fact that the Obama administration and Hillary Clinton and that group of the DNC, that wing, that mafia family of that party, openly and purposefully lied and made up shit about Trump and then prosecuted him on it on a
Mm.
whole bunch of lies. And then the whole I remember people like, "Oh my God, Hillary's and her 30,000 emails." I'm like, "That's 30,000 emails of conspiracy."
Mhm.
And like, if it probably wasn't for Elon keeping Twitter at least freer than it was before, and not allowing the media to control, or the powers that be control what the disinformation is. It's a big deal. I mean, without Trump and without Elon, I don't know where we would be right now. I'm not trying to give credit to Trump. I don't like the motherfucker. I'm just saying.
I agree with you
I don't.
guys. Go ahead, Jan. Sorry.
So I'm sorry. I don't think with if Elon doesn't buy Twitter, I don't think your show is on YouTube,
I
right?
agree.
Because I think the fact that he bought it kind of stopped that slippery slope that we were in, of complete censorship on online. It actually gave a platform where people can say essentially whatever they wanted to, right? Whether it was a conspiracy or not, and whether it was misinformation or not, right? I think, so when that started to kind of, when that pendulum started to swing back, when Elon bought it, I think a lot of the other social media networks had to kind of take a step back in their censorship
I agree.
because people were going to leave.
Yeah, because it allowed like the emergence of independent media is
Mhm,
so important right now. People like Talibi or Schellenberger or Michael
mhm,
Malice or Dave Smith or even our libertarian guys, but even the ones that we don't necessarily align with, but it's allowing everybody's voice to get out, not just and call out the bullshit. And the
mhm.
thing is, the independent media has the proof. We can
Yeah.
show you what they did to us. We can show you how they're
Mhm.
trying to limit what we can say. I mean, the Democrats ran on starting I can't remember the name of the company they wanted to like design or the branch of government, but it was basically like a censorship bureau of what's
Oh,
mis right? It was like the Bureau of Misinformation or some
yeah,
shit. That was so
that's what it was. Yeah, they ran on that and they started it, and then like it got shut down after a month.
yeah,
Thank
Yeah.
God.
Mhm,
it's always under the disguise of we're helping the people. You know,
Yeah,
we
we're
have
here to help you. Yeah,
from this news. What news is that? Oh, it doesn't matter. We're protecting you from
yeah.
it. We
mhm.
can't even let you know what we're protecting you from. That's how important we
Yeah,
are.
just go back in your home. We're just gonna handcuff you to the chair real quick, but it's for your own good. Don't
Yeah.
worry.
So only 2 weeks.
Yeah,
2 weeks to stop the spread.
Yeah.
Right? Slow
yeah.
the
Don't
spread.
worry. We got you guys.
Hmm.
I think you guys are totally correct about that. I think it was several factors. Trump is involved. Elon buys Twitter. The rise of independent media. I also think the 2020 pandemic also woke a lot of people up because people are
Hmm.
watching the news. Oh, yeah, no, you get the vaccine, it fully protects against the disease. And then a month later, well, like 80% like protects against the. And then a month later, well, it's like kind of works, but not really. So,
But
and
you
I
should
think
get a booster.
people are watching this. What's that?
But you should get a booster. Even though it's not working, you should get a booster.
Right, exactly. And I think
The
people are watching this, and
third booster.
Yeah.
what's that, Jan?
Your third booster.
Your
Get a
third
booster.
booster. Yeah,
Yeah.
And
yeah.
and to stand 6 feet away from somebody or like the mat not the way the masks thing, but even just like the
The
arrows
social
on the floor
distancing.
of the grocery store
Mhm.
Yeah,
or
yeah. You remember that? They put little stickers on the floor. You can only walk one way in a lane
or you got to
Yeah.
put your mask on when you walk through the restaurant, but you can take it off when
when you're
you sit
sitting
down.
down. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
And I remember when Sturgis still happened the one year in 2020 or 2021, people still went to Sturgis, and there was like, oh, there's 8 new virus infections at Sturgis because people weren't wearing their masks or whatever, and they shouldn't be out. And then for 9 months they rioted, but that was okay, and no one was spreading the problem then.
Yeah.
It's just sometimes the hypocrisy of the left is so crazy. I just don't understand how anyone can fall for it.
I think that's a yeah, it's a good point. And to be honest, during COVID, I still was not awake. But here I am, like sitting in a restaurant, sitting down at a table so I can take my mask off. And in my head, I'm like, this is ridiculous. Like, whatever, I'm gonna comply. I'm gonna go along with it because I want to be a good citizen and all that. That's how they got me, through my empathetic nature. But I'm like, this really doesn't make any kind of logical sense at all. And I think a lot of people maybe felt the same way, and they're like, hey, these people on the TV, these people in Hollywood, I'm not going to listen to them anymore.
I mean, everybody goes with I want to be the good citizen and follow it around, and not be that crazy guy, who's not wearing a mask or, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really think it's a big deal, but again, logically, does this make sense? you know like, I still see people today, and I'm sure you guys do too, wearing masks. And I'm like, guys, the war's over, but okay.
Yeah, like what are you
Yeah,
doing?
what are you doing?
Is there any bigger way for you to symbol to the rest of us that you are an idiot?
Total sheep. Now,
Uh,
I don't
Yeah,
get on them for it. You want to wear the mask, wear the mask. But
yeah.
uh, you know,
That most of the time signals to me that I need to have as little interaction with you as possible. Right?
yeah,
Like,
Especially after it's been so much time and like what like I almost want to spend a day in somebody else's algorithm just to know, like, what the fuck are you looking at that is different than what I'm looking at, that I know all this shit. And
But
like it's just not how do you just completely avoid all of that news completely of all the lies that came out through COVID?
well, I think the problem is you just watch CNN or MSNBC, right? And all they don't pinpoint the lies, right? They don't show you, the statement where Fauci said the 6 foot distance was just a guess. It
Yeah,
wasn't based on
Mhm.
anything, right? I may be wrong, but I don't think that clip was ever played on CNN or MSNBC, right? I don't think they've
Doesn't
ever
fit their narrative.
honestly sat down and explained to their viewers that if you said that this was a lab leak, that you weren't some crazy fucking nut job, January 6th, or what was that? Oh my God, that cult that they claimed everybody was in.
Oh, QAnon.
Uh, QAnon, yeah,
Yeah.
that you weren't some crazy, Q person
Yep.
and all that, right? They never did that, right? If you're somebody who just watches CNN or MSNBC and Fox the same way, for certain different viewpoints. But if you're just somebody that watches, MSNBC and reads Mother Jones or whatever those websites are,
oh
you're
god,
you're never going to see how we, like our viewpoint, right? You're never gonna think that Fauci's anything but the
see.
smartest doctor in the world and somebody that tried to save all of us.
My mom called him a hero. Damn near hung up the phone on her.
One of my favorite things about libertarian literature, or not necessarily like libertarians, but even like when you go with back to Rothbard or Mises or even like Tom Woods or Bob Murphy, like it's not only here's our point of view, it's like here's our point of view, here's how we got it, here's their point of view.
Mhm.
Let me show you how it's wrong, and then I'll compare it. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
what was eye opening to me was not only to believe that the Democrats were wrong or the Republicans were wrong and whatever, but here's the evidence to show you. Like when I learned about the Fed and I learned how inflation truly works, that was my real wake up call. Was like, oh, my guys are lying too, and that is it. Like I don't know. Once I understood the Fed and I just saw the theft through inflation, how the central banks influence so much, like
Mhm.
again, I tell Paul all the time, it just seems so clear to me that I can't believe I didn't see it before. And then I get like frustrated when other people can't see it because I'm like, here it is. Just look what I showed you. Read this
Right.
article. Watch this clip. You know, here's don't take my word for it. I'm not an expert. I'm some asshole from high school that you're friends with on Facebook. But let me show you what I found through this guy who is a certified expert or whatever.
Jan,
Like I
what
was
got you
talking
to?
about Jeffrey Sachs today, and he's like, "Oh, Jeffrey Sachs is an economist. I don't like economists. I don't believe in them." And I'm like, Jeffrey Sachs has been in the business for 50 years. He's advised 100 different nations on 100 different topics. He's been to Ukraine a million times. He's talked to their government on how to, you know, manage at home. He's not a schlub. And just to say I'm sure he's a good professor.
Mhm.
And I'm like, did you even like look into anything I sent you? Like, I didn't send you the guy's name and the whole speech he gave in front of the parliament the other day for you to Google who he is and then not look at it.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm not asking you for somebody else's opinion of him. I'm asking for your opinion of him.
That's a shame because Jeffrey Sachs is the man. That guy's really smart. Jan, what
Yeah,
got
he's
you in?
very, and I agree and I don't agree. This is where him and Mersheimer disagree. Like Mersheimer's like a realist. He's like at a certain point you're gonna fucking fight because that's just how the world works. And Sachs is we can always talk. We can always talk. But he's also very uh, afraid of nuclear war, which he should be, obviously, because it's nuclear war. But he's like, especially with Russia, it's our most important relationship in the world is America and Russia because we're the ones with thousands and thousands of nukes.
Mhm. Oh, you were
I was
going
going
to
to ask you, what got you into, or what got you to start distrusting the media? How long have you been distrusting it for? What was your moment where you're like, wait, hold on a second, if you
I
have
mean,
one?
that's a good question. I'm not sure I can put my finger on it, but I think it was kind of at the time as I started becoming a libertarian, right? And whether I mean the was it the USS Maine incident? Um, what was the oh my god, Rogan always brings it up. Oh my god, where the Joint Chief of Staff uh, wanted JFK to blow up an airplane.
Oh, in Cuba?
Yeah.
Yeah, with
What uh
that
what was that
was the
operation? Oh my god.
Northwoods.
Yes, yes. So like
Yeah.
things like that, right? That were just never reported on, and then you could take a simple topic and just look at the way it's covered by both different sides, and you go like, wait, I can't. Yeah, there you go. I can't trust anyone because they're just giving me their spin on this, right? And then when you just start, reading about it yourself, you go, oh shit, they're both lying to me, right?
Mm.
The world's not black or white; it's gray, and you know, they don't tell us the gray parts, right? They tell us either the white parts or the black parts,
Yeah.
right? Just based on their point of view, and everything else is, oh no, that's a lie. So I think my mistrust of the media kind of really started as I really became a libertarian.
It is like it's a slow buildup of
Mhm,
questions in your head, and then the one thing it's just you're like, oh, and then it all just clicks.
Yeah.
mhm.
I think
So it was
that's
like
true. You kind
100
of have like a
lines.
gradual thing, and then something just pushes you over the cliff, and you're like, all right, you know.
Yeah, it's like 100 little lines. They're like, oh, that's not quite right. It doesn't really add up. It doesn't add up. It doesn't add up. And then all of a sudden, you got a whole lot of math that doesn't add up. And then
Yeah.
the only explanation can be was they lied to me because it doesn't make any fucking sense. And
I
then when
was,
you go and like some of the lessons I learned the most were something I was wrong on. And I went and searched for the answer myself. And that's the shit that I remember the most. I don't remember being right. I remember being wrong. And then I remember what clicked inside my head and switched me.
Well, again, I don't know. I'm having so many brain farts today, but who is either Tom Woods or somebody that said the libertarianism is the most like self-searched um, philosophy in the world. Like before any libertarian believes in an idea, right? They second guess themselves 15 times, 15 ways over to make sure that they are it, not even correct, but like not wrong, right?
Correct.
So it really is one of those philosophies that like we're constantly questioning, right? Even though again, I'm fully bought in and fully believe in it, and Trevor, I'm sure you are too. But every day you're kind of questioning: is my belief right in this situation? And you
Yeah.
go, I think so because
Yeah.
even even though it's not going to be utopia, it's still going to be better than wherever the fuck we are.
mm,
100%. And again, the one of the core things about libertarianism is that it's if you cooperation amongst each other
Mhm.
in achieving your own happiness is beneficial for us to cooperate than it is for us to screw each other over. And that is how prosperity just happened. Private property and individual rights is what allowed entrepreneurs and people to create and make shit and get us off the farms and into the factories and so on.
Correct.
Well,
I,
bring up the ship and see if they actually sunk it for me.
oh, they didn't.
Oh, that's just bullshit.
Yeah, I saw that earlier when you asked me to
Oh,
Google
okay.
it.
I mean, that would have been a definite level up of aggression to sink a
Wait,
get
they
the
didn't sync it or they did? Because
They
I thought
didn't.
they did.
No, here I'll pull it up again. I'm gonna go all the way back and find it. Here it is.
yeah. I think the article I was talking about was old anyway, but
Well, this is
supposedly today.
I think this is AI, right? Isn't this AI up here? I think so. It says there is no record of Russia sinking a British ship in recent events. However, there have been several incidents involving Russian ships and British vessels or interests, for example, in 2021. And it goes on to say that Russia threatened to sink British warships if they sailed too close to Crimea. But yeah, it looks like that wasn't true. Or
What are you looking at?
I think this is AI. Yeah, it's an AI
So
generated answer.
Oh,
I We have
I'm
something
looking
on
at the
Daily Mail.
Daily. Yeah, I'm looking at the Daily Mail website, and it says that two ballistic missiles hit the Panama flagged container ship, reportedly Swiss owned, soon after it arrived in Odessa March 1st after making a stop in Turkey. Two port workers were believed to have been wounded in the strike, which also damaged infrastructure, Ukrainian reports said.
Yeah, that's my
Um,
problem with it right there. Ukrainian
I can't
reports?
find
yeah, yeah.
anything. I can't find anything less than 4 hours right now. And that's the same article right there.
Yeah. I don't
Well,
know. Maybe it is true. I really don't know.
Well, if it's true, it's a big escalation. I mean, either it's kind of like Lusitania, right? Like
But it,
I
it makes no
know
sense, right? Like to me, because Putin's on the cusp of having a peace treaty with Trump, right? We don't really need
yeah,
Zelensky to agree.
well, with Trump, he's not necessarily getting it with Europe because they're rallying around
Well, I saw
Zelensky.
that Starmer said he's going to put British troops on the ground. And if that's the case, and you're going to put British troops on the ground in Ukraine, then I would argue that Russia has every right to bomb your ships because that's essentially a declaration of war, right? I mean, it's bad enough you're funding the Ukrainians, you know, but it's another thing to put your soldiers on the ground.
Yeah, I mean, if that's what happened during World War I and World War II, right? Like unrestricted submarine warfare. It's like, okay, we're not at war with you, but I know you're funding my enemy. I know you're giving them tanks. I know you're giving them guns. I'm just supposed to let your ships go through because we're
Yeah.
not at war. Like, how about you stay out of my war zone and we won't have a problem?
Again, how
Or
would the United States respond to this? If Russia was
right.
doing this to us, would we just be like, "Oh no, that's totally cool. Just let them through." You know?
No, we were already been at war, right?
Exactly.
And so, but also, I mean, yes, these articles are saying it's Russia and it's done. I mean, let's not forget who blew up the pipeline, right? It
Yeah.
was
oh yeah,
Russia. I don't think it was Russia, right?
no, I think with us,
Yeah, exactly. And
the
and then also in Syria, right? Who dropped those the gas bombs, right?
gas, yeah,
It wasn't
Mhm.
Assad, right? Why would he cross the quote unquote red line as he's about to win, right?
Yeah, it makes no
What
sense.
yeah. Mhm.
And again, if Europe wants to continue this war, on their own dime and with their own soldiers, they're welcome
Go for
to.
it.
But I would
Yeah.
say that it's fair game at that point if Russia starts bombing you guys or bombing your ships.
Mhm.
yeah. I just asked Gronk, and Gronk says there's no reports of it actually happening. So I guess maybe it's just
Yeah, I
one of
think
those
the
stories.
Daily Mail too. That's Shapiro, and to be fair, he's more reliable than like NBC and stuff on certain issues. But I don't trust Ben Shapiro as far as I can throw that idiot.
Nah, man, the that's a whole long conversation, but the Israeli hold on the
Not just him, but a
American
lot of
decision
people.
makers, I guess, are the is strong,
Yeah.
Yeah.
overwhelmingly strong.
Well, again, I think Shapiro is accurate when it comes to a lot of issues. Mostly like DEI and gender stuff. But when it comes to like Ukraine and Russia, I don't really trust them, and I certainly don't trust them when it comes to anything in the Middle East. I'll immediately just click
Right.
right off of his article. I don't even want to
Actually, a
read it.
good way to tell is if is it on antiwar.com?
Oh,
Oh yeah, perfect call.
that's a good question. find it.
That's one of my go-to websites every day is antiwar.com.
Okay.
I like their podcast too.
Yeah, we've used them before on here.
Yeah, yeah, the stuff I listen to. I like Tom Woods. I listen to Tom Woods almost every day. His 3 times, 4 times a week. Um, I do a lot of Dave Smith. I like Bob Murphy too.
I haven't listened to Woods or Murphy in a while. I listen to Dave Smith from time to time now too. I'm kind of like I said, the whole infighting within the Libertarian Party really caused me to kind of take a step back and just be like, whatever.
Yeah, I think I liked Angela McArdle. I think what she
Mhm.
did was awesome, bringing
Yeah,
RFK to talk. Um, I think it was great bringing Trump to talk, and I think that
100%.
that alone made more people Google what libertarians are than ever before.
Correct.
Um, and the fact that they pushed her out and like almost that coup that
Hmm.
of the half the party that just doesn't like the Mises guys, and I'm 100% in the Mises camp.
Same.
That I think that what happened with Chase Oliver and what happened with McCardle is is detrimental to the party. I think that I don't know how the next 4 years is going to go. Like unless Dave comes in and decides to run.
I feel like everything he said. I'm sorry to control, but I feel like everything he said
There.
is that he's not running anytime soon, right? Um, and as much as I like Dave and would love for him to run, I think he would, his campaign would be dead before it even takes off, right? I mean, he said enough of the no words, uh, on podcasts
Yeah,
that, people would just play that and be like, nope, you can't vote for him because he's a racist Nazi, blah, blah, blah. And he'd be done, right?
I
So,
think Dave is better suited as uh, like a lieutenant or a consigliere. Like
mhm,
Dave goes on the circuit and he
correct.
debates on behalf of whoever.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, Reckenwald was not my favorite choice, but I was going with him. Um, I kind of like Lars, but I didn't. Chase Oliver was my least favorite of all of them.
I just like, I don't understand how he got so many nominations. Like I understand, obviously, there's a lot of different rounds and people dropping off and all that, but I just like, who in their right mind, which delegates in that party looked at Chase Oliver and said, "Yes, this is the guy that is going to bring us the vote." I I I have no fucking clue. Like, who could actually look at that and say yes?
For the audience, the way libertarians pick their candidate is at the convention. They they pick them there. They don't go in knowing who it's going to be, and the candidates and the representatives from each state will keep going round and round until they narrow it down. Somebody wins all the votes, and then they do the same thing separately for vice president. So we get to pick both of them. Like the reason I like JoJo is because I like Spike, and Spike was the vice
Mhm.
president. And he's the shit. But so it came down to Michael Reckenwald, who was my guy, who was a
Kind of like a Mises Peak picked
yeah,
guy.
he was
Yeah.
a hardcore, not a hardcore leftist, but he was a lefty, and he was a professor at Columbia, and they canceled it over some bullshit, and that's what set him off and brought him over to the liberty movement.
Mhm.
Um, and then this other guy, Chase Oliver. Paul, bring up Chase if you can, Chase Oliver, and it came down to the two of them, and all of a sudden the votes just went all Mike Vandermeek, whatever his name is, the guy who ran for VP,
Mhm.
colluded at the end, and he's
Yeah.
like, because Vandermeek was running for president also, so he's like, I'll give you my 40 loyal followers,
Yeah.
all your people vote for me for VP, and like this dude, I don't. I follow plenty of libertarian stuff online. I go Libertarian Institute with Scott Horton. I follow all the guys. I didn't see him do an interview with anybody. It's almost like he wasn't even running a campaign.
Correct. And I think that was a whole big issue. I know Dave did a whole episode on how, like, they invited him over and really cleaned up that internet picture search of his, because there's a lot of pictures there where you can tell whether he's a libertarian or a hardcore leftist.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think so. Dave, I think, did a whole big episode on basically how many times he said, listen, if he wanted to come on my show, I would have him on in a heartbeat, because he's the libertarian presidential candidate, and we could certainly discuss the issues that I have with him. But that was not that's not what happened.
No, Chase preferred
Mhm.
to basically talk shit online
Yeah.
to anybody who even questioned him. And what I liked about him, because a couple times that I happened to comment on X, just for the sake of
Mhm.
it, and he would chime back once in a while, and I'd be like surprised. And
Yeah.
it was always like some extreme thing, or like insulting me that I didn't understand where he was coming from. And like I said, I think that that move is gonna hurt the party. But at the same time, I think that the whole party structure in America is shifting away from whatever it was before anyway.
Why would he refuse to go on Dave Smith? Like, isn't Dave Smith one of like the premier, if not the premier voice of the Libertarian Party? And then
Also,
Spike Cohen?
because the party is pretty much split into essentially two camps, right? You got the Mises camp, and you have the old kind of uh, the old brigade, right? Basically, their position is, we're just a little center left than the left is, right? I mean, that's kind of like my best way to describe him, right? Chase Oliver was for the lockdowns until he wasn't, right? He's for children being mutilated.
Mhm.
He's got a lot of, like, leftist positions, which, again, as a libertarian, right? I think what you want to do with your body, it's your fucking choice. I couldn't give two shits whether you wanted to, cut off your penis, or sew another one on and have walk around with two or three of them, right? But you got to be 18, and you can't push that shit on me, right?
Right.
Um, it, but I think, again, what that side of the party does is what the left does. And, oh, well, if you don't agree with me, then you're a racist, sexist, and you're not a real libertarian, right?
Ah,
Yeah.
enough
Libertarians,
said.
there's
Mhm,
like pro-life, there's pro-choice libertarians,
mhm,
but like the things that again bring us together are individual rights, and again the non-aggression principle. So Chase, except when he flipped on Israel, obviously, because he
mhm,
went to that group, is the I think his claim to fame to being even libertarian at all was that he's anti-war, which is a big thing for us.
mhm.
So I think that kind of is his only real libertarian view would be anti-war, but then he's a hypocrite because he supports Israel.
Yeah.
Right. You can't have it both ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the one other thing I want to get to you, speaking of the changing of the world order, not the new world order. I'm talking about like power structure and switching to like a multipolar. America is not the only great power, hyperpower. There's now
Mhm.
going to be multiple great powers negotiating. We're most likely going to fall back to a pre-World War One, pre-World War Two mercantilism type system, and it seems that they're going to somehow change up the monetary system. It looks like they're prepping us for that. Do you think that maybe? I mean, I'm just talking to my ass here because there's so much to it. But like, do you think that they're setting us up for a possible default on the debt, similar to when Nixon took us off the gold standard? That they're going to try to switch us to like if the Fed stays involved, it'll be a central bank digital currency. And if we switch the monetary system to something else more private, I don't know, but I feel like there's a major change coming in how we deal with money or the monetary system. You know what I'm
So,
trying to say? I'm just kind of
mhm.
putting it out there.
So my theory during the election was that basically the left was the left power brokers were very happy to have Kamala Harris and Tim Walz run, knowing most likely that they were going to lose, right? And the reason for that was they see some kind of economic, breakdown happening, right?
Yeah,
Whether it's another recession, depression, I mean, default obviously would certainly cause us to go into, a recession, if not a depression. And I think they see something like that coming down the pipe, right? And again, if Kamala Harris had won, right, they would have tried to kick the can down the road a couple more years and try to stay that off until they lost. But I think this gives them now a lot of cover, and they could point at Trump as the reason for this economic collapse and
yeah.
say, "How we told you you can't trust the Republicans. Look what this idiot did."
Yeah, Paul, I mentioned that to Paul earlier on, a month or two ago, that like if Trump does what needs to be done and make the cuts, I mean, he's doing it now, but hypothetically, this is before. And if you cut Social Security and you cut Medicare, and you have to be the one to pull that trigger for the sake of not going to an economic collapse, that party is not going to win an election again for the next fucking 4 elections. You know what I mean? You've taken away everybody's Social Security, you've taken away the money, even though the money's not there. And I mean, Trump's already added to the deficit, so we're going to end up either printing our way out of this or kicking the can down the road and printing more,
Mhm.
or there's going to be a major monetary change. In Trump today, he's been talking about the sovereign wealth fund, and then he was pimping Bitcoin, Ethereum, and XRP today because those shot through the roof. And then there's the reports of all the gold that's been coming back across to try to fill our vaults back up to show that we have the gold, maybe, or
Mhm.
the
Yep.
gold is because they trade it so often without actually moving it that who does the gold even belong to us? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I know
That-
Trump said he said numerous times that he is 100% against CBDC. That's a central bank digital currency for anybody listening who doesn't know what we're talking about. He said numerous times that he is totally against that and will never implement one.
Well,
but then he's pimping out his own coin, right?
yeah.
So it's
Yeah, but that's not a
interesting.
central bank coin, right? That's
No,
just
no, it's not. But it,
cryptocurrency. Yeah, I
yeah,
think it's different if it's a privatized coin
correct.
like Bitcoin versus
Mhm.
like the Fed, the Federal Reserve. You know,
Yeah,
I'm not saying I trust Bitcoin, but I definitely don't trust the Federal Reserve. You know,
correct.
Oh,
Well, there's really no difference between the two, right?
is
Uh,
there? I don't really understand
uh,
crypto. I don't know how it works.
I know that the CBD or the crypto, the excuse me, the central bank digital currency will be run by the Fed.
mhm.
So
That's a no for me right
that's
off
a
the bat.
no. It's just
Yeah.
that gives them complete and utter control of the money. And I mean, I don't. I just all I can think about is how them just printing more money without any control and just racking up the debt. I mean, eventually the interest payment on the loan alone on the debt is about to be $1 trillion. It's going to get worse, and 28 trillion of our debt needs to be remortgaged, however, refinanced, however they do it, and that's going to be on today's interest rates, which are, I mean, for money it's like 5%, but for houses it's like 7.
Mhm.
But when Biden took out a bunch of money and when Trump took out the money, the rates were still low. So we're only paying 2% on $13 trillion. Now 28 needs to be redone with a new rate. You got to pay that interest, and then plus all the shit we're paying on top. It's almost like because it's going to come to a point where you can't just keep printing and printing and printing, and it's gonna be hyperinflation at some point. So
Correct.
the only way to get around it would be to default and either set up a new way that they did with taking us off the gold standard, um, or you can do something like that Germany did in World War II, was cut out the central banks and issued their own money, which allowed them to prosper and build the war machine that they did do.
Mhm.
So
But you would have to have some kind of resource for that, right? Like you'd have to have gold, silver, something to back it.
there's a whole lot of gold coming back to the United States right now, man.
Yeah, why did it leave in the first place? Is the gold in Fort Knox? I don't know. But
The
Jan,
Fort
we
Knox
kind of got away.
and
Hang
there's
on, I want to go
gold.
back for a sec before we talk
Mhm.
about the gold in Fort Knox. Jan, we kind of got away from that. So again, I don't really know cryptocurrency. But from what I understand, like Bitcoin is private. It's privatized. No
Correct.
central organization or government runs it. It,
Correct.
Correct.
but you said that's the same thing as the CBDC. So I
Well,
guess that kind of confused me.
yeah. Well, I mean, the only reason I said it's kind of the same thing is because, right, it's kind of like our currency now, right? It's not really backed by anything, right?
Fiat, yeah.
It's just the value of it is based on essentially what you think it is and what you're willing to pay for it. Versus, I mean, our currency now is really not backed by anything, right? And its value is only based on what the Fed tells us, its value is.
I
Right?
think my issue with Bitcoin, is just the fact that it is digital. I think that's great for like ease of
Mhm.
operations. You know, you go to the store, you just swipe your card. You don't have to carry gold or money or anything like that on your person, which I
Correct.
think is great. But what if someday the servers crash or something, and you had $800,000 worth of Bitcoin, and now you can't prove that you own that? You know, so that would be, I don't know again how it works, if there's backups, or I'm sure somebody's probably already thought of this, but that would be like my major concern is I have
I
all
mean,
this money in Bitcoin, servers crash because there was a thunderstorm and wherever, and now I'm poor and homeless.
Bitcoin blockchain. I understand how you can make money on it. I understand that part of the game, but I don't understand how blockchain works or how you mine the shit or how you find it or any of that. I don't get it. I don't get computers in general. But
So I think mining is it's some like you need these really, I guess, powerful computers, and it's just constantly doing a mathematical equation. I may be completely wrong because
No,
I'm
that
not.
that is correct.
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
And then upon whenever you solve that equation, all of a sudden you find some, right? But again, it's supposed to be based on the fact that Bitcoin is limited, right? So that you could keep mining and mining for decades and only find a small amount. That doesn't make any sense to me either. Um, the blockchain, but I think is very um, very advanced, right? And essentially, I think if the servers crash, right, you're okay because once they come back on, the way the blockchain works is like there's not going to be an issue.
It has
right.
backups and stuff.
But I've heard.
Yeah.
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but this might just be for other coins, but I mean, you can like put Bitcoin on a zip drive or a little
Yeah,
USB
Mhm.
thing. So if
yeah,
I
you can.
lose it because I got drunk one night or whatever, and I just lost 3 Bitcoin, you know what I mean? That Bitcoin's gone fucking forever.
Yeah,
Well,
there
there's
was I was gonna say there was
a,
somebody famous or one of like the finance guys or whatever who had like a hard drive with like millions of dollars worth of Bitcoin, but for some reason like he forgot the password or whatever and he got locked out of it because it's all encrypted. Like you can't hack it or
correct.
anything.
So basically this it's there's a guy in England, right, who essentially, I guess, moved out of his apartment or whatever, right, and the Bitcoin account or whatever, his digital wallet was on his computer, and I think it's. I'm looking at the article now. Um, the Bitcoin right now is worth $600 million, and
That,
he can't get into it because he. I think it's the password for the account is on that computer, and if you type in the wrong password 3 times, your basically like account gets deleted
It wipes
and your
it. Yeah.
wallet gets emptied out. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
That's
my
crazy.
understanding is that he had put in the wrong account, the wrong password twice. So now he can't try it again. And this the funny part is this story popped up recently, is that because he's trying to buy the landfill. Actually, I guess he
yeah,
did buy it, where the computer might be buried, and
that's
he's
what.
going to try to find
Yeah,
it.
guy wants to buy a landfill so he can go look for
Mhm.
his millions of dollars of Bitcoin that he lost on the computer. That's just crazy.
That is
Yeah,
crazy. Yeah,
so
I don't
actually,
know. I know they've been flirting with the idea of using cryptocurrency, specifically Bitcoin, as a new form of currency here. And again, I don't think I know enough about it to really have an opinion on it. But I would like to see them have some kind of paper currency still, just to, because I do like cash. I realize it's an IOU note, but I like to be able to
mhm,
exchange cash and not have to, carry my bank card or credit cards on me at all times.
Yeah, and I don't want every single cent tracked. You know what I
Right.
mean? Loan you $5, or I buy something for $5, or I buy anything, or I give my nephew $20 because it's his birthday or some shit. You know what I mean? Like, no,
Right. Bank of America doesn't need to know every single time I go into
like,
7-Eleven or
yeah.
whatever.
giving.
But I also think there's like a privacy type of setting on Bitcoin as well,
Yeah, there
so
is.
you
Yeah.
can't just track it. Yeah.
Yeah, from what I understand, it's completely untraceable, which could be
'Cause,
really good or really dangerous, I guess, depending on how you're looking at it.
well, it's good for us and bad for them, which is why they hate it.
Mhm.
Well, I
Correct.
think that's part of it. But like you mentioned the NGOs, earlier, well, where did all the money go? Well, if it's Bitcoin, we'll never know. But in this
Mhm.
case, we are able to track it. So yeah,
Mm.
I
Yeah,
don't know.
Doge is putting every little thing on their website, doge.org or
Hmm.
.gov or whatever, every
Mhm.
little thing they cancel or the fraud they find. So I find it funny when like the one of the things I see is like they're taking the food out of little kids' mouths, or people are going homeless because of these
Mhm.
cuts. I'm like, okay, if that's true, show me which one it was. Which particular cut did they make that is listed that affects that?
Yeah.
And you can't point it out. I'm not saying it's not happening. I believe you if it is, but if where's the cut here? What program are you saying got cut, and where is the funding source? Show me what money you're not getting now, because it should be up here, and if it's not up there, then you're lying.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that that's a good point. A lot of these NGOs and where they have these awesome names, like where they're so misleading. It's like world peace. Oh well, yeah, that sounds great. And then you look into what world peace has been funding, and you're like, what the fuck? This has nothing to do with world peace. But
Yeah.
the mainstream media, oh, Trump just they're defunding world peace. I told you he was a dictator. They're terrible people, blah 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 blah. But in reality, nobody's actually looked into world peace. And just so you guys
Yeah,
know, I'm using that as an example. I don't know if
yeah,
that's a
or
legit
or the
NGO.
people, or the people on the committees, right? Like these NGOs are run by brother-in-laws and
Mhm.
wives
Yeah.
and friends of when you leave the government, because like say you're at the when Biden's people are in, right, and the new party comes in, the old administration goes out, they go on K Street, they work for a think tank, they get jobs at universities, they do whatever, and they have all these connections to the NGOs, and then they go back in and they know how to funnel the money to their people.
Hmm.
And
So this,
go
uh,
ahead.
this was an article that came out a couple days ago. There is a it's Senator Sheldon Whitehouse, a Democrat from Rhode Island, is being investigated because he, I guess he had donated, well, through the state funds or passed a bill that sent a bunch of money over to an NGO, an environmental, NGO that just so happens that his wife was, I guess, the CEO of, and she made like $12 million.
Yeah.
Being the CEO of that NGO, and it's like, oh wow, yes, Ocean Conservancy has received more than 14.2 million in federal grants since 2008. During 2024 alone, it was given two sizable grants, one for 5.2 million and another for 1.7 to assist with marine debris cleanup, which is great, except for the fact that majority of that money went to his wife.
There you go.
Yeah, like Stacey Abrams, the chick from Georgia, doesn't she get like 2 billion or something? She scammed some crazy amount of money. Oh,
Possible.
Stacey Abrams, Georgia Democrat. She was big in the last election. She's a big fat black lady.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, like this is
So,
a prime example right here, like Ocean Conservancy, right? Like, oh yeah, conserve the ocean. Like again, if for somebody who has no idea what this company is, what it does, that actually doesn't sound bad. Oh, it's the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Oh, it has to do with oceans. That's good.
Yeah.
And then you look
well,
into it.
again, that NGO's mission was to clean up the oceans. But fantastic. I love it.
Great
Right?
idea.
Yeah. Except, again, the only thing it did was clean up that guy's account for any debt that he had, has now made him a fucking millionaire.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. What else is coming out is the amount of Congress people who have been paying off student loans for their kids. Jamie Raskin, I know the name because he's the big January 6th guy.
Yeah.
For the Democrats who ran that investigation, and he was when I lived near DC. He was my congressman. Um, he's worth like $12 million, and his kid just got her student loan. Not just got, but at some point got her student loans in part of the payoff, whatever
Yeah.
the relief, instead of like the normal people who were supposed to who would actually benefit.
I mean, even without looking into it though, how much is he worth?
I think it's at 12 million.
12 million. What's his yearly salary? You know,
Just what do they make, like 175, 174 or something.
he just must be really good in
So
the stock market. That's what it is. He's just
there's a
really
there's a
lucky, or he's just a real good financial guy to spend that kind of money.
there's a good quote that you guys just made me think of. It's famous by Soul, and I'm going to butcher it, but it has something to do with people tend to look at a a program based on what it's supposed to do as opposed to the results. And they use it a lot for the Department of Education, because the Department of Education is, oh my God, we're helping the kids. Why wouldn't we want it? But if you look at the results of since the implication of the Department of Education, it's gone down. So I know the theory is we're helping, but the proof is that you're not helping and you're actually making it work.
Yeah.
You should pop that.
And again, you could always say that causation or correlation does not mean causation, but again, like you just said, right, literally from day one of the Department of Education, our test scores and our level of education has decreased, exponentially every single year.
Yeah, I
So
just saw something for Philly the other day. Like 60% of people in Philadelphia read below a sixth grade level. And then Ray
Mhm.
Dalio was just on Tucker Carlson. I don't really watch Tucker, but I like Ray Dalio.
Mhm.
He did a great uh he wrote a book, then he also did a 45-minute like animated presentation on the book called The Changing World Order. And he reviewed 500 years of all the greatest empires and the reasons that they fell. And then he compares them to America, obviously, because we're on the same trajectory
Yeah.
of history of the rising power, hit top, and then it's on its way down, and then the declining power, which is us, bumps into. He says China's the new rising power, but that's not really going to work. China's too easy. It's not easy, but China's biggest problems are because it industrialized so fast, it requires so many inputs. It gets 80% of its energy from the Middle East. It gets 80% of its food from somewhere else. So you simply blockade China for a second, and they got no energy and they got no food.
Yeah, so it's not it can't
It can't
self-sustain.
sustain it because
Yeah.
it industrialized so damn quickly. They were that's the like I said before, not on this episode, we talked before
Mhm.
that when the ship blocked the Suez Canal, only for 2 weeks, it made such a ripple effect on the how fragile trade is and how one little bump can cause like again like such a ripple because
Mm.
so much stuff is outsourced and then back and then outsourced, so many inputs and outputs that um it's just it that's why countries are everybody's changing it up right now and trying to find new sources of material to
It,
yeah.
I don't know. It just makes me think it's so crazy how the news is just there's so much now that you can't keep up with. Like, I completely forgot that a ship was stuck in the Suez Canal.
Mhm.
You know, I mean, like you said, I was like, holy shit, that's right. And
Yeah,
like, if you think about it, I pretty much almost forgot that this whole bridge in Baltimore, was taken down by a
I just
tanker.
thought of that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so crazy how it's like every day there's something fucking new, right? It's insane.
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, if it wasn't for the fact that I'm interested in this shit, like I went to
Mhm.
school for history and geopolitics and economics, is because it's what I do in my spare time. I like it. Um, I can't, and I follow it as much as I can. There's just so much shit that I don't even know. I don't have time to follow more than like 5 things and try to be on point with it.
Correct. Yeah, that's crazy.
All right, I guess that's a good time to wrap it up. It's actually 2 hours went by pretty quickly.
Oh shit.
This is fun. Jan, I appreciate you coming on, man. And if you want to come on any other time, whenever you just want to shoot the shit, man, we would appreciate it.
Listen, I had a great time. So anytime you want me on, you let me know. This was fantastic. So yeah,
yeah. Give it a couple of weeks. We'll bring you back on, and we'll just talk about the next freshest shit that we want to talk about.
sounds good.
All
All
right,
right.
brother. We appreciate.
Thank you.
Thank you for the anybody who actually made it this far through our episode. Like and share. I guess I always forget that. And have a good night, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye.
John.